Strange things that happen here, how stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree?
Welcome to Strange Things, broadcasting from the Raimundo Rios Mayo Library in Arkansas. And welcome to the show. I'm your host, Chris James. Tonight, it's March 4th, 2017. Season number 2, episode 9. Tonight's show came about while my wife and I were talking about food as we sat and waited for dinner at Denny's. The things that folk ate thinking it would help them lose weight. This led to us talking about things people were willing to eat simply because some politician had decided it was good for them. Now think about it. The FDA is mostly a political entity, and not much concerned for we the people. Just about every head of the FDA has retired and sought employment with some drug company, the same drug company they supported wholly while deciding if the drugs they put out just might possibly be harmful for people. So here is some of the dirt I was able to dig up. You're free to ignore any of this, if that will make you feel better as you sip your chemically enhanced poison. Our population is being poisoned with artificial chemical sweeteners. Let's take a look at just a few. Aspartame is a sweetener that has never been proven safe. As a matter of fact, the original safety recommendation panel at the FDA said that aspartame should be denied approval as a safe food ingredient. Aspartame is the technical name for NutraSweet equal, spoonful, and equal measure. Aspartame originally sought approval for use in dry goods in 1974. Objections filed by neuroscience researcher Dr. John W. Olney and consumer attorney James Turner in August 1974, as well as investigations of G.D. Searle's research practices, caused the U.S. Food and Drug Administration to put approval of aspartame on hold. In 1976, Donald Rumsfeld became CEO of the drug company G.D. Searle and Company, which was trying to get aspartame approved by the FDA. Now, in 1975, Rumsfeld is chief of staff at the White House. 1976, he's the CEO of the company making aspartame, but he's still the chief of staff until 1977. I doubt very seriously that he had the health and well-being of the United States of America as his primary interest in 1985. Correction, 75. Aspartame accounts for over 75% of the adverse reactions to food additives reported to the FDA. Many of these reactions are very serious, including seizures and death. A few of the 90 different documented symptoms listed in the report as part of aspartame's dangers are headache and migraines, dizziness, seizures, nausea, numbness, muscle spasms, weight gain. Now remember, this is a dieting ingredient. Rashes, depression, fatigue, irritability, tachycardia, that's an unhealthy fast heart rate, insomnia, vision problems, hearing loss, heart palpitations, breathing difficulties, anxiety attacks, slurred speech, loss of taste, tinnitus, that's a ringing in your ears, vertigo, memory loss, and joint pain. According to researchers and physicians studying the adverse effects of aspartame, the following chronic illnesses can be triggered or worsened by ingesting aspartame: brain tumors, multiple sclerosis, epilepsy, chronic fatigue syndrome, Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's, mental retardation, lymphoma, birth defects, fibromyalgia, and diabetes. Brain tumors caused by aspartame. Makes you wonder what's in there. Well, aspartame is made up of 3 chemicals: aspartic acid, phenylalanine, and methanol. Methanol is poisonous to the central nervous system and may cause blindness, coma, and death. The book, Prescription for Nutritional Healing by James and Phyllis Balch, lists aspartame under the category of chemical poison. Dr. Russell J. Blaylock, a professor of neurosurgery at Medical University of Mississippi, published a book thoroughly detailing the damage that is caused by the ingestion of excessive aspartic acid from aspartame. Blaylock makes use of almost 500 scientific references to show how excess-free excitatory amino acids, such as aspartic acid and glutamic acid, in your food supply are causing serious chronic neurological disorders and a myriad of other acute symptoms. Dr. Marcola says in an article that artificial sweeteners such as aspartame are typically used to sweeten so-called diet food and beverages in lieu of sugar or high fructose corn syrup. The idea is that reducing your calorie consumption will result in weight loss. However, research has shown that artificial sweeteners actually have the converse effect. They actually lower appetite-suppressant chemicals, and they encourage sugar cravings and sugar dependency, thereby raising your odds of unwanted weight gain. Research has repeatedly shown that artificial sweeteners promote insulin resistance and related health problems, such like regular sugar doses, including cardiovascular disease, stroke, and Alzheimer's disease. While poor diet is a major cause of Alzheimer's in general, the key mechanism of harm here appears to be methanol toxicity, a much ignored problem associated with aspartame in particular. In an interview, toxicology expert Woodrow Monty, Ph.D., author of the book While Science Slept, A Sweetener Kills, explains the link between aspartame and methanol toxicity and the formation of toxic formaldehyde. You see, methanol is used to form formaldehyde, which is also known as embalming fluid. The International Dairy Foods Association and the National Milk Producers Federation filed a petition with the U.S. Food and Drug Administration requesting the agency amend the standard of identity for milk and other dairy products. This change would have allowed them to add aspartame to chocolate milk, which is a primary milk product served with school lunches, without them having to label it as a low-calorie drink. As if kids in school don't have enough problems already, they want to start them ingesting methanol as well. Don Kennedy is a former head of the FDA, and he's the current editor-in-chief of Science magazine. He had this to say about aspartame's potential toxicity. The whole sweetener issue has interested me since my early time at the FDA. A little later, still during my time as commissioner, I was called on by Donald Rumsfeld, who introduced himself as the CEO of Searle. We told him that we would look carefully at the evidence and rely on expert committee structure as usual. The FDA had actually banned aspartame based on their findings, only to have the Searle chairman, Donald Rumsfeld, vow to call in his markers to get it approved, which he did, and it was. Well, we're going to take a brief pause here, play a couple of commercials. Don't go away. We'll be right back after this. You're listening to Arkanasa Radio. Do you have skin? Would you like to take better care of it? Call Lourdes James, independent beauty consultant, and set up an appointment. Call 723-3019. If your vision isn't what it used to be, and you're not sure you're seeing Bigfoot or just your neighbor mowing his lawn, stop on by Del Norte Optical, 107 Calle del Norte, just across the street from the Embassy Suites. You should be able to see what you're looking at. Looking for a great cup of coffee? Swing on by the Organic Man Coffee Truck, 1002 Eaterby Day, Suite number 7. Not a coffee drinker? They have hot chocolate, hot tea, and sometimes muffins and cookies. It's a great place to meet your friends for a conversation or curl up in the corner with a good book. The Organic Man Coffee Truck. Life is too short to drink bad coffee.
No, don't say goodbye. Stay with us. This is Arcanasa Radio. Quédate con nosotros. Estás escuchando Arcanasa Radio.
You're listening to Strange Things with Chris James. And welcome back. We were just talking about aspartame and how it got put on the market. And Kennedy said that Rumsfeld has a lot to answer for in his next life. His next life? Why is he still allowed to make our current lives dangerous? Why wait until his next life? Lock him up now. But rich folks hardly ever go to jail. In 1985, Monsanto purchased G.D. Searle, the chemical company that held the patent for aspartame and the active ingredient for NutraSweet. Monsanto was apparently untroubled by aspartame's clouded past, including a 1980 FDA Board of Inquiry comprised of 3 independent scientists which confirmed that aspartame may indeed induce brain tumors. At the University of Chicago, which has a top-rated neurology department, the doctors there said when you gave NutraSweet to lab mice, it literally blew holes in their brains. As is often the case, children are particularly susceptible to damage from artificial sweeteners. A study evaluating how much artificial sweetener is actually absorbed into the blood when consumed by children versus adults. They found that children had double the concentration after drinking a 12-ounce can of diet soda as compared to an adult. As reported by Science Daily, the same research team previously found that these artificial sweeteners were also present in breast milk when mothers had ingested food, drinks, or medications or other products that contained artificial sweeteners. Since infants have less ability to clear substances from their bloodstream via the kidneys, the authors speculate that infants' artificial sweetener blood levels may be proportionally even higher. These results are important because early life exposure to artificial sweeteners may influence a child's future taste preferences, diet, and metabolic fate. Research published in the journal Nature in 2014 revealed a previously unknown mechanism by which artificial sweeteners make you pack on unwanted pounds and disrupt your metabolic functions. In recent years, we've learned that gut microbes play a significant role in human health. Certain gut microbes have been linked to obesity, for example, and as it turns out, artificial sweeteners disrupt your intestinal microflora, thereby raising your risk of obesity, diabetes, and other related problems. Specifically, the researchers found that artificial sweeteners alter metabolic pathways associated with metabolic disease. Decreased function was observed in pathways associated with the transport of sugar in the body. Artificial sweeteners were also found to induce glut dysbiosis. Dysbiosis is a term for microbial imbalance or maladoption on or inside the body, such as in impaired microbiota. Glucose intolerance in otherwise healthy people. Of the artificial sweeteners tested, saccharin, or sweet and low, had the strongest impact, followed by sucralose and aspartame. Glucose intolerance is a well-known precursor to type 2 diabetes, but it also plays a role in obesity because the excess sugar in your blood ends up being stored in your fat cells, according to authorities of this widely publicized study. Another study published in PLOS One also found that when rats were fed aspartame, it shifted their gut microbiota, causing it to produce short-chain fatty acids involved in sugar production, which resulted in elevated blood sugar. Dr. Adam Balin, chairman of the British Fertility Society, told the Daily Telegraph, "Recent research also suggests artificially sweetened drinks may affect your fertility." It found a connection between saccharin and sucralose consumption and the reduced fertility rates among women undergoing in vitro fertilization treatments. These artificial sweeteners also raised the risk of women's embryo having at least one deformity. Now, false advertising is prohibited by federal law, and the term diet is only permitted on brands that help reduce your weight. In light of the research demonstrating that artificial sweeteners actually raise your risk of obesity rather than combat it, the consumer group known as U.S. Right to Know has asked the Federal Trade Commission and the FDA to investigate Coca-Cola Company, PepsiCo Incorporated, and other companies for false advertising. In its 2015 citizens petition to the FDA, U.S. Right to Know asked the agency to issue warning letters to Coca-Cola and Pepsi, concluding that the beverages are misbranded because the use of the term diet is false and misleading. In another letter, the group urged the agency to stop Coca-Cola Company from making illegal claims that its artificially sweetened soda prevent, mitigate, or treat obesity, noting that Coca-Cola had made such claims at least 8 occasions. For example, Coca-Cola Company announced that its #1 global commitment to fighting obesity is to offer low or no-calorie beverage options in every market. However, if artificially sweetened beverages promote obesity rather than fight it, then Coca-Cola commitment is anything but helpful. Nor is it supported by science. Coke illegally claims diet soda can combat obesity. PepsiCo is now vowing to reduce the amount of sugar they add to their drinks. According to a recent announcement, at least 2/3 of its drinks will contain 100 calories or less from added sugar per 12-ounce serving by 2025. But while this may sound like good news, it simply means that more artificial sweeteners will be used. Indeed, the company has stated it will achieve this sugar reduction goal by introducing more artificially sweetened drinks and reformulating existing beverage recipes. Considering artificial sweeteners are more damaging than sugar, this means the company's product will become even more harmful than they already are. In 2014, Pepsi announced it would stop using aspartame. This decision came on the heels of the declining diet beverage sales following a string of bad press discussing mounting health concerns. However, by September of 2015, the company had reintroduced aspartame, claiming consumers demanded more choices. Now people are saying that aspartame is on its way out. The new sweetener is sucralose, or Splenda. This is an artificial sweetener that claims to be made from sugar. The Splenda is made by removing some of the atoms from sugar and replacing those atoms with atoms of chlorine, which is, of course, one of the chemical elements used during the atrocities of World War I. This is the same chemical used to disinfect swimming pools and the public water supply. Your soda is being sweetened with a swimming pool cleaner. If you think about it, which often, unfortunately, a lot of folks don't, you might start thinking maybe there's something wrong with this sweetener that contains chlorine. Would you go out and drink chlorine? If you know anybody who works on pools or who has a pool maintenance business, they will tell you that chlorine gas will kill you. In fact, just to handle chlorine, they have to wear protective rubber gloves and protective respiration devices. Still, the food industry is pairing chlorine with sugar and then calling it sugar. It should be labeled poison, do not consume. However, when money is to be made and politicians are to be bought, the food industry will do as they please, regardless of how many of us citizens pay the ultimate price. Maybe it's all that fluoride folks are drinking, but that's going to come up later in the show. Next, we go to high fructose corn syrup. High fructose corn syrup is not biochemically identical nor processed the same way by the body. High fructose corn syrup is an industrial food product and far from natural or a naturally occurring substance. It is extracted from the corn stalks through a top-secret process. When you think corn sweetener, you think of the yellow part of the corn, not the stalk. The sugars are extracted through a chemical process, resulting in a chemically, biologically formed compound called HFCS, high fructose corn syrup. Now let's clear the air a bit. High fructose corn syrup is not fructose, and it is not corn syrup. Those are both natural produced substances. High fructose corn syrup is a chemically formed sweetener that is not safe to use. Some basic biochemistry will help you understand this. Regular cane sugar is made of two sugar molecules bound tightly together, glucose and fructose, in 50-50 quantities or equal amounts. The enzymes in your digestive tract must break down the sucrose into glucose and fructose, which are then absorbed into the body. HFCS also consists of glucose and fructose. However, it's not a 50-50 ratio. It's 55 to 45 fructose to glucose in an unbonded form. Fructose is sweeter than glucose. HFCS is cheaper than sugar because of the government subsidies. Our tax dollars go into the manufacture of HFCS. Products with HFCS are sweeter and cheaper than products made with cane sugar. This allows for the average soda size to balloon from 8 ounces to 20 ounces with hardly any financial increase to the manufacturer. It does come with a great human cost of increased obesity, diabetes, and chronic disease. Now back to the biochemistry. Since there is no chemical bond between them, no digestion is required, so these sweeteners are more rapidly absorbed into your bloodstream. Fructose goes right to the liver, and it triggers lipogenesis, which is the production of fat, like triglycerides and cholesterol. This is why it is a major cause of liver damage in this country, and it causes a condition called fatty liver, which affects about 70 million people. The rapidly absorbed glucose triggers big spikes in insulin, our body's major fat storage hormone. Both these features of HFCS lead to the increased metabolic disturbances that drive increase in appetite and weight gain, diabetes, heart disease, cancer, dementia, and more. It depletes the energy fuel source, or ATP, in our gut, required to maintain the integrity of our intestinal lining. High doses of free fructose have been proven to literally punch holes in the intestinal lining, allowing nasty byproducts of toxic gut bacteria and partially digested food proteins to enter your bloodstream and trigger inflammation that we know is the root of obesity, diabetes, cancer, heart disease, dementia, and accelerated aging. Naturally occurring fructose in fruit is part of a complex nutrients and fiber that doesn't exhibit the same biological effects as the high fructose does, and what they also are calling corn sugar. HFCS contain contaminants, including mercury, that are not regulated or measured by the FDA. An FDA researcher asked corn producers to ship a barrel of high fructose corn syrup in order to test for contaminants. Her repeated requests were refused until one day she claimed she was representing a newly created soft drink company. She was then promptly shipped a big vat of HFCS that was used as part of the study that showed that HFCS contained toxic levels of mercury because of chloralkali productions used in the manufacturing. When HFCS is run through a chemical analyzer or a chromatograph, strange chemical peaks show up that are not glucose or fructose. What are they? Well, nobody knows. The Corn Refiners Association has petitioned to the U.S. FDA to allow manufacturers the option of using the term corn sugar instead of high fructose corn syrup because people are becoming aware of what HFCS is. In their press release on the subject, they claim that independent research demonstrates that a current labeling is confusing to American consumers. They blame the inexact science reports and inaccurate media accounts for the current stigma associated with high fructose corn syrup. Part of what makes HFCS such an unhealthy product is that it metabolizes to fat in your body far more rapidly than any sugar ever was. Dr. Marcola says the number one source of calories in the United States is high fructose corn syrup, mainly in the form of soda. Dr. Mercola also said the number one source of the dangerous sweetener is also in many processed foods and fruit juices. Even seemingly health-conscious beverages like vitamin water, Jamba Juice, and Aldwada Superfood contain far more added sugar and or fructose than many desserts. The corn industry recently claimed that it is not much different than sugar, and it is perfectly safe, but, well, I don't think so. Let's take a brief pause, play a couple of commercials. We will be right back after this, so don't go away. You're listening to Arkanasa Radio. Do you have skin? Would you like to take better care of it? Call Lourdes James, independent beauty consultant, and set up an appointment. Call 723-3019. If your vision isn't what it used to be, and you're not sure you're seeing Bigfoot or just your neighbor mowing his lawn, stop on by Del Norte Optical, 107 Calle del Norte, just across the street from the Embassy Suites. You should be able to see what you're looking at. Looking for a great cup of coffee? Swing on by the Organic Man Coffee Trike, 1002 Iturbide, suite number 7. Not a coffee drinker? They have hot chocolate, hot tea, and sometimes muffins and cookies. It's a great place to meet your friends for a conversation or curl up in the corner with a good book. The Organic Man Coffee Trike. Life is too short to drink bad coffee.
No, don't say goodbye. Stay with us. This is Arkanasa Radio. Quédate con nosotros. Estás escuchando Arkanasa Radio.
Every day in a
You're listening to Strange Things with Chris James. And welcome back to the show. I must admit, preparing for this show, it took a lot longer than I'd expected it would, simply because I started going through my pantry, looking for all the different food items that me and my wife had that contained either aspartame or high fructose corn syrup or many of the other chemicals that I had read about. And the next thing you know, I'm throwing away a lot of the food that we had planned on eating. Nothing will ruin your appetite quite like reading the contents of some of those packages. Okay, getting back to high fructose. The primary reason it is so dangerous is that it's quite cheap to produce. After all, they're using the corn stalks, which normally would have been thrown away. So it has been added to nearly all processed foods. The excessive consumption of fructose, such as HFCS, is a primary driving factor behind a number of health epidemics, including obesity, diabetes, and heart disease. The corn industry is still holding fast to the claim that all sugars are metabolized by your body in the same way. This is their justification for using products that have been linked to so many diseases. Now, the so-called watchdogs of our diet are the American Dietary Association. Their job is to investigate the substances that we put into our bodies in the form of food. The ADA works so closely with Coca-Cola and PepsiCo, it's nearly impossible to figure out who is who. The scientists working for the ADA get most of their information and a lot of their money from the companies they are supposed to be keeping an eye on. So what else can our food corporations think of to put in our food and our water that will probably wind up killing us? They're quite creative, and they had a lot of things at their disposal that should have been sent down the disposal. The next terrible item on the list is hydrogenated oils. They're called brain poisons, and for a good reason. They're present in just about half of all the food found in the grocery store. It's listed right there on the label. Hydrogenated oil or partially hydrogenated vegetable oil. This artificial fat directly causes cardiovascular heart disease. It has been shown to destroy normal cardiovascular health. It affects the functions of the nervous system. It causes brain disorders, and it causes heart attacks. It also causes birth defects and essential fatty acid deficiencies in both the mother and her fetus. It is put into our food on purpose, for the convenience of the food manufacturers. Hydrogenated oil doesn't go bad. It has a shelf life right up there with the roaches. How do they make hydrogenated oil? Since you can't find it in nature, you do it by bubbling hydrogen gas through liquid soybean oil or other types of oils, and you use a catalyst. What can you use as a catalyst? Well, how about nickel? Sounds yummy. So with this nickel and the bubbling of hydrogen gas, you get extra hydrogen atoms attached to the molecules in the oil, which makes them solid at a room temperature. Since they are solid at room temperature, they can be more easily used to make margarine products or used in crackers and cookies, and all of this, again, is for the convenience of the food manufacturing companies. And speaking of margarine, did you know that the chemical formula for margarine is just one substance away from PVC pipe? That sounds so delicious. Here, spread some PVC on your toast. We use butter at our house. Food manufacturers aren't concerned with your health. Their job is to sell food products. If you do have a health problem as a result, well, that's your problem. You probably grew up downwind from a nuclear plant. You won't find food companies offering to pay for your medical bills if you have a heart attack from eating hydrogenated oil. They're basically passing the buck and demanding that you pay for the health consequences caused by their food. In fact, they're working hard to pass legislation that would allow or disallow lawsuits against food companies. For an example, the Monsanto bill, it was snuck into the Farm Bill and passed by our so-called representatives in Washington. The bill was written up to protect Monsanto from lawsuits coming about due to some of their fiddling about with our food. The folks we elected to represent us are actually representing big business, and they're getting quite rich doing it. In January 1996, the FDA approved Olestra as a food additive. Cut out the unhealthy cooking oil. Olestra found its way into just about everything from ice cream to French fries. But Olestra proved to be a greedy chemical. It not only removed unwanted fat from food, it also negated the body's ability to absorb essential vitamins. Some of the side effects included cramps, gas, loose bowels, and sudden, uncontrollable bowel movement. Let's say that again. Sudden, uncontrolled bowel movement. There you are, out on a date, and whammo, you go to the bathroom right then and there, number 3 in your shorts. Number 3 is number 2 that comes out looking like number 1. The FDA has kept Olestra as a legal food additive to this day, though they leave its health implications in the hands of the individual consumer.
Mandrake.
Yes, Jack?
Have you ever seen a commie drink a glass of water?
Well, yeah, I can't say I have, Jack.
Vodka. That's what they drink, isn't it? Never water.
Well, I believe that's what they drink, Jack, yes.
On no account will a commie ever drink water, and not without good reason.
Yes. I don't quite see what you're getting at, Jack.
Water. That's what I'm getting at, water. Mandrake, water is the source of all life. 7/10 of this Earth's surface is water. Why, do you realize that 70% of you is water?
Lord.
And as human beings, you and I need fresh, pure water to replenish our precious bodily fluids.
Yes.
Are you beginning to understand?
Yes.
Mandrake, have you never wondered why I drink only distilled water or rainwater and only pure grain alcohol?
Well, it did occur to me, Jack, yes.
Have you ever heard of a thing called fluoridation? Fluoridation of water?
Yes, I have heard of that, Jack, yes.
Well, you know what it is?
No. Well, I don't know what it is now.
Do you realize that fluoridation is the most monstrously conceived and dangerous communist plot we have ever had to face?
That clip was the 1964 movie Dr. Strangelove. Group Captain Lionel Mandrake, played by Peter Sellers, is talking to Brigadier General Jack D. Ripper, played by Sterling Hayden. Mandrake wants to know why General Ripper has sent his air wing to bomb Russia, and the general is kind of explaining it. If you haven't seen the movie, I can only say, why not? It is one of the best movies out there dealing with the end of the world. But there's the whole fluoridation question. Stanley Kubrick had something on his mind when he put that fluoridation scene in the movie. The Centers for Disease Control, the CDC, in their Morbidity and Mortality Weekly Report of August 17, 2001, Volume 50, number RR-14, entitled Recommendations for Using Fluoride to Prevent and Control Dental Disease in the United States. It says on page 4, fifth paragraph, that fluoride predominant effect is on the surface of the tooth. If fluoride only works effect effectively on the surface of the tooth, why do we have to ingest it? A fluoride in toothpaste? Maybe. In our drinking water? Why? Every doctor knows that they can't force any medication on an individual without what is called informed consent. The doctor has to tell you what the medication is and what it might do to you. This puts the final decision to take or not take the medication in the hands of the patient. In addition, the patient has the right to question any treatment so as to make a better decision, and to refuse medication if the patient wishes. Now, those who push fluoride on us say, we don't have to drink the water, we can just go without. Sure, for maybe 3 days, and, well, then you die. It's your choice, they say. You don't have to drink the water that they have fluoridated. These same people will tell you that fluoride is not a drug, but rather it's a nutrient. So when the question of since when is a toxic waste byproduct of the phosphate fertilizer industry and the aluminum or steel industry a nutrient, they'll just mumble something about you don't have to drink the water. If indeed fluoride is a nutrient, why then do the CDC and the ADA, the major pushers of fluoridation in the U.S., say that tooth decay is a chronic infectious disease and recommend fluoride to combat this disease? Did you know fluoride is listed as an unapproved drug? It's not an approved drug because it's not a drug, it's a nutrient. Earl Baldwin, a member of the British House of Lords and one of the advisory board members for the York Review, had this to say: "What physician do you know who in his or her right mind would treat someone he does not know and has never met with a substance that's meant to do changes in their body, with the advice, take as much or as little as you like, but take it for their lifetime because it may help someone's teeth?" With fluoridation, there's no control over who gets the medication or the dosage. What if someone is particularly sensitive to the substance? Tough. What if you're an athlete and you drink gallons of water every day? Tough. When a person consumes a medication, any medication, isn't the dose for an infant or a child different from that of an adult? Obviously. With fluoride, it's one size fits all. There's something else to consider. If fluoride is good for your lawn, since the water that you spray on it has been fluoridated, and all that water runs downhill and into the ocean, do fish need fluoride for their teeth? Have you looked in a shark's mouth lately to see if their teeth are nice and strong? There's something else to consider. Those people living in communities without fluoride in their water have virtually the same rate of tooth decay as those living in fluoridated communities. Or how about those folks who drink nothing but bottled water? If you get too much fluoride, it causes fluorosis, a discoloration of your teeth. It also makes them brittle. You now run the risk of fracturing a tooth, and that is very painful. I know. Dr. Phyllis Mullinex proved that fluoride had an adverse effect on the brain. As a result of her work, she was told that her work was no longer relevant to dentistry, and she was fired. Peer-reviewed studies showed adverse effects on the thyroid gland were ignored, as were studies linking fluoride to damage of the pineal gland. The pineal gland is located between the two hemispheres of the brain and is responsible for the synthesis and secretion of melatonin. Melatonin affects jet lag, sleep patterns, and aging, and by the time old age hits, the accumulation of fluoride in the pineal gland is in very high concentrations. At the end of the Second World War, United States government sent Charles Eliot Perkins, a research worker in chemistry, biochemistry, physiology, and pathology, to take charge of the vast Forbin chemical plant in Germany. Forbin was the company manufacturing Zyklon B gas. That translates as Cyclone B. Just a little something used to kill millions of Jews in the gas chambers. While there, Perkins was told by German chemists of the scheme which had been worked out by them during the war and which was adopted by the German General Staff. This scheme was to control the population in any given area through mass medication of the drinking water. In this scheme, sodium fluoride occupied a prominent place. Repeated doses of infinitesimal amounts of fluoride will in time produce an individual's power to resist domination by slowly poisoning and narcotizing a certain area of the brain, and will thus make him submissive to the will of those who wish to govern him. Both the Germans and the Russians added fluoride to the drinking water of prisoners of war to make them stupid and docile. There's also a profound connection between fluoride and bone damage, with symptoms almost identical to arthritis, beginning with aching bones and joints. One of the better cover-ups came out of Harvard University. Elise Basin, as part of her 2001 doctoral thesis for her dental degree, found a connection between fluoride and bone cancer in adolescent boys. When she submitted her findings to Dr. Chester Douglas, the head of the Harvard Dental School, he omitted that finding when he released her thesis. Why would he do this? Maybe it's the fact that he was on the payroll of the Colgate-Palmolive Company. It had something to do with it. Somehow, years later, Basin's findings were found and released, causing Harvard to do a complete investigation on Dr. Douglas. During the investigation, Dr. Douglas made a $2 million donation to Harvard and was eventually exonerated. One other finding was an adverse effect on the kidneys. It was found that fluoride can damage the kidneys at high levels, and someone with poor kidney function would have limitations clearing fluoride from the body, making that person especially vulnerable to fluoride and other toxic effects. And we're going to take a brief pause here to play a couple of commercials. Don't go away. We'll be back with more poison additives in our food. You're listening to Arkanasa Radio. Do you have skin? Would you like to take better care of it? Call Lourdes James, independent beauty consultant, and set up an appointment. Call 723-3019. If your vision isn't what it used to be, and you're not sure you're seeing Bigfoot or just your neighbor mowing his lawn, stop on by Del Norte Optical, 107 Calle del Norte, just across the street from the Embassy Suites. You should be able to see what you're looking at. Looking for a great cup of coffee? Swing on by the Organic Man Coffee Truck, 1002 Iturbide, suite number 7. Not a coffee drinker? They have hot chocolate, hot tea, and sometimes muffins and cookies. It's a great place to meet your friends for a conversation or curl up in the corner with a good book. The Organic Man Coffee Truck. Life is too short to drink bad coffee.
No, don't say goodbye. Stay with us. This is Arkanasa Radio. Quédate con nosotros. Estás escuchando Arkanasa Radio.
You're listening to Strange Things with Chris James. And welcome back to the show. I hope I haven't destroyed your intake of water yet. With all this adversity, is there any group, organization, or government agency accepting any of the responsibility? One would hope the entities heavily involved in fluoridation would somehow come to their senses. The American Dental Association keeps telling us to use fluoride for everything from brushing our teeth to watering our lawns. The CDC says tooth decay is a disease and fluoride is good for that reason. The EPA, well, they're just plain kind of useless. The FDA says fluoride isn't a drug but a nutrient, and it's not really a food, so they pass. U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, not sure what they do, but they avoid talking about fluoride. National Sanitation Foundation reaps the benefits of having all the sewer lines well fluoridated. None of these government agencies will look into determinations caused by pumping this chemical waste product into our water supply, but they do accept the cash from the chemical lobbyists. So what started out as an experimental program back in 1945, without any health studies done whatsoever, it turned into a cash cow for the industries that previously had to dispose of this toxic waste to the tune of millions of dollars a year, and now instead of having to pay to dispose of this byproduct, they get paid to pass it on to us. There's a book out entitled Protecting Public Health and the Environment, Implementing the Precautionary Principle. The precautionary principle means that if there's an uncertainty, yet credible scientific evidence of concern of threats to health, precautionary measures should be taken. Joel Tickner and Melissa Coffin, two scientists that examined the water fluoridation controversy, wrote the precautionary principle. It should be noted that even if you're not living in a fluoridated community, you are ingesting fluoride. When you eat food or drink beverages that are not produced in your community, you are likely ingesting substances that were produced with fluoridated water. Despite the recommended ingestion of fluoride is 1.2 parts per million, the reality is that people are ingesting fluoride at least 8 parts per million. To solve the issue of tooth decay, the proponents of fluoridation say more fluoride is necessary. The opponents of fluoridation say that more education is necessary. Education is needed about better diets, better dental habits, and the dangers of sugar in relation to tooth decay. Early symptoms of acute fluoride poisoning include gastric pain, nausea, vomiting, and headaches. So what can you do? How about attending your city council meeting and voicing your opinion? Write to your newspaper and tell them you're not happy about being fluoridated by the city water supply. Try reading a few articles on your own health. If you don't take care of yourself, no one else will. Most of this information was brought about by J.A. Yamanionis, that's how it's spelled, Water Fluoridation and Tooth Decay, Paul Connett, Ph.D., The Case Against Fluoride, and Chris Bryson, The Fluoride Deception.
Mandrake,
Yes, Jack?
have you ever seen a commie drink a glass of water?
Well, no, I can't say I have, Jack.
Vodka. That's what they drink, isn't it? Never water.
Well, I believe that's what they drink, Jack, yes.
On no account will a commie ever drink water, and not without good reason.
Yes. I don't quite see what you're getting at, Jack.
Water. That's what I'm getting at, water. Mandrake, water is the source of all life. 7/10 of this Earth's surface is water. Why, do you realize that 70% of you is water? And as human beings, you and I need fresh, pure water to replenish our precious bodily fluids. Are you beginning to understand? Mandrake,
it did occur to me, Jack, yes.
Have you ever heard of a thing called fluoridation? Fluoridation of water?
Yes, I have heard of that, Jack, yes.
Well, do you know what it is?
No, I don't know what it is now.
Do you realize that fluoridation is the most monstrously conceived and dangerous communist plot we have ever had to face?
Now think about this. Do you think Stanley Kubrick put that scene in the movie to warn people about the horrendous consequences of our water supply being contaminated? Or did someone tell him to put this out there so anyone trying to warn folks about fluoride would be laughed at, and people would say, "Oh, that's all from that movie. There's nothing wrong with fluoride. It was all just that movie."
I can no longer sit back and allow communist infiltration, communist indoctrination, communist subversion, and the international communist conspiracy to sap and impurify all of our precious bodily fluids.
Someone who didn't have our best interests at heart has decided to allow bisphenol A and other chemicals into canned goods. This latest is coming from Mike Barrett from PrisonPlanet.com. March 2nd, 2013, bisphenol A, or BPA as it's sometimes referred to, as a hormone-disrupting chemical used in canned goods and plastic bottles. The chemical, which is labeled as toxic in other nations, should have been banned in the United States back in March 2012. In a move that angered activists within the U.S. and even internationally, the FDA ruled against the ban. This ubiquitous chemical has been linked to obesity, hyperactivity in girls, infertility, sterility, breast cancer, reproductive issues, hastened puberty, feminization in boys, and damage to the arteries. If you have bottled water, don't leave the bottle in your car or your pickup. As the vehicle heats up, over time, the chemical BPA begins to leach out of the plastic and becomes integrated into the water. These days, physicians are a little stab-happy with their antibiotics, often to just please the patient with medical solution as a placebo effect. I've seen folks demand their doctors give them an antibiotic to treat a virus, like the cold or the flu. This could be setting people up for a lifelong obesity. That's what some researchers have to say. In addition to killing the bad bacteria, antibiotics kill good bacteria in the gut, thereby disrupting digestion even in the long run. If you've ever had to take antibiotics, you'll know how it gives you the runs. There's also mounting evidence that antibiotics may be promoting diabetes and metabolic syndrome, not killing cold or flu viruses that parents think they're for. Antibiotics can't kill viruses, only bacteria. Then how about all the antibiotics given to animals to treat every little thing? Our food supply is full of antibiotics. Last year, The Guardian wrote about 150 scientists and 50 farmers, including a former FDA commissioner, demanding that Congress regulate antibiotic use in livestock. The European Center for Disease Prevention and Control has even blamed overuse of antibiotics for global resistance to antibiotics, which could make antibiotics futile against disease-causing bacteria. This is not even considering the other ill effects antibiotics have on the animals that we eat. The so-called scientists at the FDA will tell you the drugs are all leached out of the animal before processing. Right. That's done by the magic fairies who work down there at the slaughterhouse. Is the FDA too cozy with the drug companies? Now, these are the gatekeepers who are supposed to guard us against dangerous drugs being sent to market. But who do they really work for? Alexandra Sifferline, September 28, 2016, in Time Health, wrote this about the FDA. People who work at the U.S. Food and Drug Administration as medical reviewers are responsible for parsing the risks and the benefits of particular drugs before it gets the agency's approval. But a new report from two researchers at the Oregon Health and Science University, published in the journal the BMJ, suggests many of these medical reviewers go on to work for the drug companies they oversaw while working for the government. Critics have called out this revolving door between the FDA and the pharmaceutical industry, and the study's authors wanted to see how the numbers matched up to the claim. They looked at the FDA's list of hematology-oncology drugs approved from 2006 to 2010 and scanned all the medical reviews from 2001 to 2010 in the agency's database. Then they looked up the subsequent jobs of the people who worked as medical reviewers for these drug approvals. The researchers found that among 55 people who worked at the hematology-oncology medical reviewers from 2001 to 2010, 27 had continued the roles at the FDA. 2 people worked at the FDA, but they were under different appointments. 15 had left the FDA to work with or consult for the biopharmaceutical industry. The jobs of the rest of the people could not be determined. I don't think there is a covert collusion going on, but if you know in the back of your mind that a major career opportunity after the FDA is going to be working on the other side of the table, I worry that it can make you less likely to put your foot down, says study author Dr. Vinay Prasad, an assistant professor of medicine at the Oregon Health and Science University. Regulators may be less willing to be very tough, and I worry that this is happening. In a response, the FDA spokesman Jason Young sent Time the following statement. Employees leaving government for industry is a dynamic that is present across government agencies, and he went on to explain why they couldn't do anything about it. Prasad also added that more needed to be done to recruit and retain the best talent at the FDA, since they are the ones looking out for our health. We need to address why people are leaving the FDA, he says. I sympathize for them. These people are doing an important job, and they're certainly earning less than what they can make in the pharmaceutical industry. Personally, I believe if you work at the FDA, you should be barred from ever working for any of the companies you're supposed to protect us from. But that's just me. Well, I hope you've enjoyed tonight's show, and it didn't ruin your dinner too much. Next time you're about to drink or eat something, check the label to see just what it is you're putting into your body. Read the ingredients and then ask yourself, do you know what those chemicals are, and do you really want them in your family's bodies? We'll be back next Saturday with more strange things.
Are you coming to the tree where they strung up a man, the same murder 3? Strange things that happen here, how stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree?